So now that we all know what Nordic-RSE is about, we'll go on to Fouilloux, who is a research software engineer working for the Nordic-RSE infrastructure collaboration, and who's based in Oslo, Norway. And she will be talking about myths and misconceptions about research software development in academia. And the floor is yours. We cannot hear you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Now we can.
Yes. Yes, so I have this very heavy task to talk about this myths and misconception about research software development in academia. And what I have tried, or what we have tried, is really to focus on what is slowing down the advancement of science, the reduction of job opportunities, and also this innovation part where everyone is talking about at university, and it's very low in the Nordic. So trying to identify what is the role or the lack of role of the RSE in this context. So one of the first misconceptions we have identified is, and we hear, at least I hear very often, is that a research software is any code written by a scientist. And we have this coming very often that now coding has been added to the curriculum. So every student is learning to code from a very early stage, even at school. And they learn Python and many other languages. And so they are coding, they are writing research software code when they are PhD students. What we claim is the first what they are learning is to have a shared language with professional software engineers. The level is usually quite low in that sense. We are not aiming at making professional software engineers when we are teaching bachelor students. We are helping them to use software for their day-to-day work. In addition to that, the tools, the technologies, the software, we all know that they are evolving very quickly. So what we teach to a student when they start their bachelor is maybe already obsolete, or it has changed a lot when they start their PhD. Of course, we are offering training and workshops like the carpentries and the code refinery. And for them, for many people, this is a guarantee that researchers will be kept up to date or bring up to date with the tools and the technology. And they will have a very good overview of how to write research software and how to develop research software in their team. And again, I think what we do is really to have this shared language so that the researcher and the professional software engineer, they can co-develop together. It's not meant to create professional software engineers. One major issue we have identified is research software is typically written by graduate, PhD, and postdocs. They don't necessarily learn professional software development. They don't really have good training for becoming good professional software developer. It is very costly. In terms of scalability, reusability, and sustainability. And as I said before, we have identified this as slowing down the advancement of science. And really, when we compare to other countries where they have research software engineers, really well established, this is really a big step down. And I think I have taken, during this talk, some of the citation from people who have already established research software engineer group, and they have seen the benefit of these groups. So for instance, Jeroen Tromp, which is a director of the Princeton Institute for Computational Science and Engineering, really claims that modern research software is very complex, it's far too complex and fragile to be left solely to students and other researchers whose positions are transient. So this is all this temporary position we have where we have a PhD student, they are developing and they are doing really great job, and then they just disappear because there is nothing afterwards. And this is an issue in academia. The second one, which is what Patrick was talking about in his talk, is we all believe we know what an RSE is. If you ask someone what a research software engineer is, you will always have different definition. Everyone will have his own definition. And I think the misconception is very often coming from what we have told them. We say that an RSE is either a researcher developing software or a software engineer doing research. We want to be as inclusive as possible because we would like to have many members. But the thing, we are talking to people who don't even know what is software development. So this is very hard for them to understand. And when we give them this very nice picture where we have a circle for researcher, a circle for software engineer, and we put the RSE in the middle, they interpret this figure as they want or what they can understand out of it. And so they very often understand this is sufficient to have researcher doing software because this is what is on this picture. We often see the interpretation of this figure as, okay, the RSE is in the middle. So the RSE is a link between the researcher and the software engineer. The thing, I don't know many software engineers in academia. Where are they? I would like to have maybe this link somewhere, but we don't have. I mean, we don't have as many positions for software engineer, for software development, as we have for associate professor or professors. They don't really exist in academia. So the problem we have identified here is first, the research software engineer title, it can be used by anyone because it covers so many different things that you can use it for anything. So we don't really give a clear definition. And when I say a clear definition, this is not between us, but this is for people who don't even know what is software development. We don't give a list of required diploma or a list of skills or a list of tasks they can do. And this, we should try to correct it, to make it more visible and easier for people who do not understand what is software development. So I like this definition of an RSE, which is given by a professor of geosciences and applied computational mathematics at Princeton, saying that RSE are professional software engineers. This is very simple as a definition. It's probably too simple when we are an RSE, but this is easy to understand for someone who doesn't know very well what software development is. And it doesn't make any distinction between what is in academia and what is outside of academia, because you don't really see why you should make the difference. When you are writing software, you should be able to write software in academia or outside of academia. So they are highly trained individuals. They have the ability to make transformative contribution to a research effort. They need to be treated and rewarded as such. And I think this is very clear. This is what we should try to give as a message. The third misconception, which I think is also appearing very recently, is that, okay, so you want to have this title, we give this title. We can get the title, so you get the skills. You can hire the same kind of people. And when I say the same kind of people, you can hire a fresh PhD, a postdoc, you give them the research software engineer title, and whoops, suddenly they are becoming professional software developers. The thing is, sometimes they don't even have the right skills when they start. There is no training plan for them. There is nobody to help them to have a career path, to have a proper management, professional development. So if you are efficient when you start, you are not efficient very long. If you are not efficient when you start, you will never become efficient. And you have a lot of difficulties to contribute to open source, for instance, except if you knew already before. And many of them are just doing basic research support tasks. So the main role of RSE is to repeat and teach the same thing over and over again, because we have new master students, new PhD and new postdocs, and they are always coming every year, so they need their assistance. So this is what I have heard many times. Like, this is normal at your job, maybe a bit boring, because we have this educational role and we need to teach them. It's great. I mean, I fully agree that we need to provide support. The RSE needs also to teach. And this is, for instance, what is done in many initiatives like the carpentries or code refinery. But an RSE work is neither a user support or a research computing support task. This is all about software development. I mean, the core activity of a research software engineer is to write code. So this is something we need to clearly communicate. So there is really a need to clarify the role of the RSEs and to acknowledge the need of professional software developer in academia. We shouldn't be scared to say we need people who write software. because we are trying to be a bit in between, which I think is too ambiguous for some people. And I think this is what Jan Kosden from is leading the Princeton RSE group leader. What we can use to try to communicate this message is what he says. The RSE will be seen as increasingly essential to science. I see this as being such a difference maker. We are going to see this environment where researchers who can collaborate with RSEs are going to be able to do things that others are not. I think this is already happening. If you look at what is going on, for instance, with all the exascale computing or all the new architecture, we clearly see that groups that can collaborate with RSE are doing things that others are not. And we are clearly seeing that in the Nordic, we are lagging behind because we don't really have this RSE network well established. Okay, fourth, and this is what we see very often, that managing an RSE is super easy. Anyone can manage an RSE. So we have still many different ways to manage RSE. We have seen RSEs, because they work with researchers, they should be managed by professors. The thing is, usually professors, they don't know anything about software development. So this is very, very hard for them to help a young RSE to contribute and to grow in his job or her job, because they cannot provide a proper supervision or assistance. So we have the other extreme, which is, okay, yes, they cannot be managed by professors, so let's put them in IT, managed by IT leaders. But the thing is, in academia, there is no real group writing software. So they not necessarily know how to develop software. And when they do, they don't necessarily know what is research, because they are coming from a very different background. So they are still very disconnected from the world of research or from the world of software development. And we have the hybrid approach, which we have seen very recently. This is really cool. Okay, you said this, it cannot be in that, it cannot be associate professor or professor, it cannot be IT leader. So let's co-manage. So we have people that are managed by professor and IT leaders. This is really great for them. They are in the middle. They don't know who to listen. They are very isolated. Usually what I see is really more people trying to maintain their power than trying to empower this RSE to achieve something bigger through collaboration. So they have a lot of difficulties to help RSE to find their ways and to have their say on how and what to develop. So very often they choose one side or the other, or they just leave academia, which is, I mean, this is great in that sense. If we have managed to train RSE and they go to private company, for me, this is a great achievement if they find very good job. In terms of academia, I think we need to clarify how we can manage RSE and how they can be evaluated. I think we have seen in some of the talk that, do you write paper with when you publish a code, or do you have a separate paper just for the code? This is very important in terms of evaluation. What are the criteria? How do we know you have done a good job? How do we know you can reach the next level? It means we need to have next level. So this is all these different things which I think we need to clarify. Here again, this is what Jean Trump said. He's advocating, and I think many RSE in the world are advocating to have separate dedicated RSE groups that can contribute to research projects. So in many countries, this is done at campus-wide. So they can create a collaborative supporting environment. So, and the goal is not everyone can be an expert in all aspects of research computing, but as a team, they can collectively cover many topics. And I think this is really true, especially in the Nordics, where we are very isolated. We can contribute to open source, but it's not always very well recognized in the place we work. So conclusion, and maybe some next section. And here I would like also to take the opportunity of this unconference to get inputs, feedback from you. Where can we be useful for you as an RSE? What do we miss? I know we haven't done much. This is really true. We have tried to identify what we can do. The first step we will do is definitely to register this Nordic-RSE. We need to be formal because we need to have like credibility, and not credibility among the RSEs. It is credibility outside the RSE world. I think we probably need also to establish what I call like a business case. We need to have numbers showing that there are a huge benefit in terms of money, or how much you can save if you have professional software engineer group that contribute to a research project, how much you can save, and what are the steps to realize these benefits. And we probably need to investigate in the Nordic whether these groups would be better if they are campus-wide, national-wide, or Nordic-wide, because as we said, we are quite small in numbers. So I don't know what is the best. This is something we need to discuss. And this is also related to getting funding for writing software, because this is, as we said, very difficult to get funding for writing software. Well, I think this is really key if we want to have a RSE network. Effective RSE network. Try to remove some confusing definition about RSE. And in that sense, I think we need to be very simple. We are in front of us people who don't even know what is research. Sometimes they don't know what is research software development. They don't know what is software development. Just make it simple. Just talk about professional software engineer, and this is maybe easier for everyone. I would suggest to write like a career path. What are the different levels we would need in academia, and how to reach how to go from one level to another. I have many questions from people that are interested to embrace this profession. They don't know if they have the right level, and when they are told they don't have the right level, they don't know what they need to get there. So I think this is also something the Nordic-RSE could help in that sense. What is a minimum? What do you need to learn? How and where you can learn it? And to allow an RSE to have some kind of progression and clear targets. Finally, I think we could also maybe write some kind of short guidance on how best to manage, or what works when we manage or evaluate RSE in academia, to help supervisor or to help people that are managed by external professor or IT leaders when they are evaluating the RSEs, because this is not easy for them either. And that's it. I think now it's the floor is yours. This is this open conference where we really would like to understand what we can do for you and how we can give you more visibility in your work. That's it.
Thank you very much, Anne. That was super interesting. And according to the Hack MD, which is just blowing up with questions and comments about your talk, many people here are of the same opinion. First question maybe, will you be chairing a session in the unconference about this topic? Because it seems to have a lot of interest, or do you know of any that will happen? Where we could guide
I mean,
people?
this is unconference, so the floor is yours. You want to have a session, let's make a session.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, we have already a reach out session.
Yeah, I proposed one that's missing a chair that says, what does each letter in RSE mean? And some of this conversation could fit in with that. But we'll get there in a few minutes. Okay,
then let's make that happen. Maybe one question to end your talk before we go over to the unconference part. Who, in your opinion, is the ideal scientific developer? Do you need a computational PhD to start on this track? That's one question coming from the HackMD.
I think we should not be very picky in that sense. People we are hiring at the moment have very little background, but what we should help them is to get there. So the main issue we have is usually they don't get proper training. They don't get proper supervision. So they are like isolated, but without a clear path on what they should learn and how they should learn. And definitely, I think we should more focus training toward RSEs. We have done a lot of training toward researchers, for instance, with carpentries and code refineries. We haven't done much for RSEs. I think we should do more. So yeah, any input on this would be very welcome. So for instance, there were suggestions to have a Julia Day. I think that's a really great suggestion to have this kind of thing.
Okay, we have one.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Let's go.
We have one question from the who wants to ask directly. Please go ahead, Michael.
My name is Michael. Anne, thanks for your presentation. In your presentation, you allude to the fact that I don't know if it is because of the definition that a software developer, a professional software developer, is strictly somebody who writes code. I think a software engineering is more than code, which I think we may need to be, I don't know if you have to change the definition or something there, because I have a big problem with that definition, because I think good code is supported by a lot of processes. It doesn't just become code. So like, I would give you an example of another field of engineering, construction, civil engineering. It's not just about the person who puts the bricks together. Actually, the person who puts the bricks together is not the engineer. It's the process of planning to make sure the bricks hold the structure. So I really think that the definition, even if it should be a thinking that it is okay, that understanding of code should be very core. Yes, everybody should understand code, but I think we should not lose out on the aspect that software engineering is more than just code.
I 100% agree with you. It's definitely a lot more than code. And either you can work in private company or in academia or everywhere. Writing software is a lot more than code. And the message I wanted to say is usually we try to add some subtleties when we try to define RSEs, because we know very well what we do. But the people we are talking to, they don't know. And they have absolutely no clue. They don't understand at all these concepts. And we have a lot of blind spots in this area. So when we try to explain, we do like, oh yeah, but this is not exactly writing. Yes, but maybe it doesn't matter for them. They are not there yet anyway. They don't even understand the basics. So maybe when they understand, we can go a bit further, but let's try to have them on board already, which we don't.
Actually, at a certain point, we may need to further discussion to who is a software engineer, because I get a challenge when I am in the field, for example, looking for people to, I'm doing a study, a case study, and I'm interviewing people. Somebody comes in and says, I'm a software engineer. And then you talk to the person and he knows some little bit of CSS and he has supported that process of doing CSS here and there, and then he says, I'm a software engineer. So that's where I think the definition should be going. And then we see growing up from there.
That's a very good point. And I think we could also give some guidance, like for instance, when you recruit someone, what do you, can you ask in terms of skills? Because yeah, there is a big mismatch here. And you're right, when we interview people, there is a huge mismatch between the expectation and what is really.
And maybe lastly, what about the outlook of the problem may not be much more with us. The problem is the people who are receiving services from software engineers. That anybody comes to them and says, I am a software engineer, because they don't have how to define it, they just accept it. We may need to, like the lawyers do, like the other engineers do, like doctors do, define who is supposed to be the basic minimum of what we can consider a software engineer.
I fully agree. And this is also something we have discussed, for instance, yesterday with Patrick on what kind of like services Nordic-RSE could provide is, and this is one of them where we could give a list of, you can call yourself a research software engineer if you have done this and that and that. And it's tricky because this is very wide, the activity of RSE, but it's probably necessary at the beginning to be a bit narrow so people can understand what it is about. because we are very behind compared to other countries. So thanks for your questions.
Yes, thanks for the questions. And thanks, Anne, for the talk and the answers. And I hope we will be able to have one session about the topic in the unconference part either today or tomorrow.